"Halt," commanded the lead guard, a Crystallis named Thorn whose azure skin was marked with the patterns of the elite guard. "Identify yourself." "I am Guardian Niam, returned from the dead," she announced, standing tall despite her exhaustion. "I would speak with Master Whisper." Murmurs rippled through the guards. "Guardian Niam fell at the Battle of Whisperwood," Thorn replied. "Her marking was recovered. This is some trick, perhaps a shade walker in disguise." Niam slowly raised her hands, showing she meant no threat. "Test me as you will. I am Niam, daughter of the Crystal Heart, trained by Master Whisper himself in the 7th form of crystal combat." Uncertainty flickered across Thorn's face. Such details were known only to those within the Guardian Order. Before he could respond, the gates parted, and a tall figure emerged, wrapped in silver-threaded robes that caught the sunlight. "Master Whisper," Niam breathed, emotion constricting her throat. He had aged in the weeks since the battle, new lines etched into his blue face, his eyes dimmer than she remembered. He approached slowly, as if fearing she might vanish if he moved too quickly. "It cannot be," he whispered, but hope battled with disbelief in his gaze. "It is me," Niam said softly. "I was wounded, not killed. I have returned with news that will change everything we believe about our enemy, about our history." Master Whisper stopped before her, his ancient eyes searching her face. Then, with a suddenness that startled the guards, he embraced her, a sound escaping him that might have been a laugh or a sob. "My child," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "the heart has returned you to us." The reunion was sweet but brief. As they entered the city, Niam felt the weight of countless eyes upon her, some joyful, others skeptical, all curious. Word of her return spread through Crystallis like wildfire. By the time they reached the central tower where the council awaited, a crowd had gathered in the streets below. The council chamber was a vast space carved from a single massive crystal, its facets reflecting the occupants in endless variations. 7 elders sat in a semicircle with an 8th seat, Master Whispers, temporarily empty. At the center of the chamber, a raised dais held a fragment of the crystal heart itself, pulsing with power that fed the entire city. "Guardian Niam," spoke Elder Verilith, her deep purple skin shimmering with age, "your return defies explanation. Master Whisper himself recovered your marking from the battlefield." Niam bowed respectfully. "I was gravely wounded, Elder. I dragged myself to the edge of the Whisperwood before consciousness left me. By all rights, I should have died." "Yet here you stand," observed another elder, his tone suspicious. "How?" This was the moment of truth. Niam took a deep breath. "I was saved by a human." The chamber erupted in exclamations of disbelief and outrage. Master Whisper alone remained silent, watching Niam with unreadable eyes. "Silence," commanded Elder Verilith. When order had been restored, she fixed Niam with a penetrating gaze. "Explain yourself, Guardian." Niam recounted her story, the battle, her near death, Farrell's intervention, and their journey through the mountain passages. She spoke of the healing lake, of the ancient chamber with its carvings. But when she reached for the memory crystal to show them, Master Whisper's hand shot out, stopping her. "Not yet," he murmured. "They are not ready." "What does Master Whisper mean?" demanded Elder Krill, the most militant of the council. "What are you concealing, Guardian?" Niam hesitated, torn between her loyalty to Master Whisper and the truth she had sworn to reveal. "I have discovered evidence that challenges our understanding of the Great Sundering," she said carefully. "Evidence that suggests the Shade Walkers are not what we believed them to be." "Blasphemy!" Elder Krill rose, his red skin darkening with anger. "The human has poisoned your mind with lies." "The human saved my life," Niam countered, her own anger rising, "and has shown me more truth than I have been taught in all my years as a guardian." "Enough," Elder Verilith's voice cut through the tension. "Guardian Niam, your loyalty to your savior is understandable if misguided, but you must see how this appears to us. You return from death, defending our ancient enemy, bearing tales that would undermine the very foundation of our society." "I defend the truth," Niam insisted, "as every guardian is sworn to do." "The truth," echoed Master Whisper, speaking at last, is often more complex than we wish it to be. He turned to the council. I request time with my student. Let me ascertain what has happened to her, whether her mind has been influenced by human magic or trauma. The request was reasonable, and after brief deliberation, the council granted it. Niam was not placed under arrest. Her status as a guardian still commanded respect, but neither was she fully reinstated. She could move freely within the city, but was forbidden from leaving or communicating with outsiders. As they left the chamber, Niam pulled Master Whisper into an alcove. "Farrell waits at the western approach," she whispered urgently. "I promise to return by nightfall." Master Whisper's eyes widened. "The human is here, so close to the city. He helped me return home at great personal risk. I will not abandon him." Her mentor studied her face intently. "You care for this human," he observed, not a question but a statement. Niam did not deny it. "He showed me kindness when he had no reason to. He challenged everything I believed without ever asking me to change. And yes, I care for him in ways I don't fully understand." Master Whisper sighed deeply. "I have never seen you so certain, so passionate." He glanced around to ensure they weren't overheard. "Meet me at the west gate at midnight. Bring nothing but yourself and whatever truths you've discovered. I will hear everything then." Relief flooded Niam. "Thank you, Master." "Don't thank me yet," he cautioned. "I make no promises beyond listening." The hours until midnight crawled by with excruciating slowness. Niam visited the Guardian training grounds, finding comfort in the familiar patterns of crystal combat forms. Many of her fellow Guardians greeted her with joy and disbelief, but she noted the undercurrent of suspicion in some gazes. Rumors of her, human sympathies, had already spread. When the twin moons reached their zenith, Niam slipped through the shadows to the western gate. Master Whisper waited, just as he had promised, wrapped in a simple cloak that obscured his distinctive robes. "You're taking a great risk," Niam said as they slipped past the guard rotation using secret passages known only to the highest-ranking Guardians. "As are you," he replied. "But I have known you since you were a child, Niam. You would not risk everything without cause." They moved silently through the outskirts of the city and onto the plains beyond. Niam led the way, following the path she had taken that morning, her heart quickening with each step. What if Farrell had been discovered by patrols? What if he had given up and left? But as they crested a small rise, she saw him, silhouetted against the starlit sky, sitting patiently where she had left him. At their approach, he rose, tension visible in his stance until he recognized Niam. "You came back," he said simply, relief evident in his voice. "I promised I would." Niam turned to her mentor. "Master Whisper, this is Farrell, the human who saved my life. Farrell, this is Master Whisper, the closest thing I have to a father." The two men regarded each other with caution and curiosity. Then, to Niam's surprise, Master Whisper extended his hand in the human gesture of greeting. "I owe you a debt for saving my student," he said formally. Farrell accepted the handshake. "She has saved me in equal measure," he replied, his eyes briefly meeting Niam's. For hours, they talked beneath the stars, Farrell sharing what he had learned about the Shade Walkers, Niam explaining what the memory crystal had shown her, Master Whisper listening with growing concern. "If what you say is true," Master Whisper said finally, "then the Shade Walkers are not simply enemies to be destroyed, but manifestations of the discord between our peoples." "They feed on our conflict," Farrell confirmed. "The more we fight each other, the stronger they grow. And our only hope of defeating them lies in reuniting human and crystallese," Niam added, "in healing the rift of the Great Sundering." Master Whisper gazed toward the Crystal City, its spires glowing softly in the distance. "The Council will not accept this easily," he warned. "Centuries of belief cannot be undone in a night." "Then we must show them," Niam said, her hand going to the memory crystal at her throat. "Let them see what we have seen." "And what of the human?" Master Whisper asked, nodding toward Farrell. "His presence in the city would cause panic." "I will face whatever judgment your people deem appropriate," Farrell said quietly, "if it means a chance for peace." Niam moved to stand beside him, her hand finding his. We face it together, she corrected, as we have faced everything since the battlefield. Master Whisper observed their joined hands with an unreadable expression. Very well, he said at last. Return to the city with me, both of you. I will ensure the human's safety while we present your findings to the council. As they walked back toward Crystallis, the first light of dawn breaking over the eastern horizon, Niam felt a strange mixture of fear and hope. The path ahead would not be easy. Centuries of hatred and misunderstanding would not dissolve overnight. But for the first time since she had taken her guardian oath, she felt truly aligned with her purpose, to protect not just her people, but the truth itself. And with Farrell beside her, his hand warm in hers, she found the courage to face whatever awaited them within the crystal spires. The council chamber hummed with tension as Farrell stood before the elders, the first human to enter Crystallis in centuries. Guards lined the walls, crystal blades drawn, ready to strike at the slightest provocation. In the center of the chamber, the fragment of the crystal heart pulsed with increased intensity, as if sensing the significance of the moment. This is unprecedented, Elder Verilith stated, her ancient eyes fixed on Farrell. A human within our sacred halls. An enemy brought before the heart itself, added Elder Krill, barely contained hostility in his voice. Not an enemy, Niam countered, standing proudly beside Farrell. A healer, a warrior, and the bearer of truths long forgotten. Master Whisper stepped forward. Honored council, I have spent the night listening to Guardian Niam and this human, Farrell. What they have discovered challenges everything we believe about our history, about the Shade Walkers, about the very nature of the Great Sundering. And you expect us to believe the words of a human, scoffed Elder Krill. I expect you to judge the evidence, Master Whisper replied calmly, as is your duty. Niam removed the memory crystal from around her neck, approaching the dais where the heart fragment rested. This crystal contains memories from before the Sundering, she explained. Memories preserved in their purest form, untainted by centuries of retelling. Place it upon the heart, instructed Elder Verilith after a moment of consideration. Let us see these supposed truths. With reverent care, Niam placed the memory crystal beside the heart fragment. For a breathless moment, nothing happened. Then, light surged between the two crystals, expanding outward in a dome that encompassed the entire chamber. Within the light, images formed, vivid, three-dimensional scenes from a past long forgotten. Humans and Crystallis living together in harmony. Joint settlements where crystal technology and human ingenuity merged. Healers of both races working side by side. Children, human and Crystallis, playing without fear or prejudice. Then came darker images, a mysterious sickness spreading among both peoples, causing fear and mistrust. Accusations flying as both sides blamed the other. The first appearance of the Shade Walkers, shadowy entities forming from the discord, feeding on fear and hatred. The final memory showed a desperate ritual. Crystallis' elders and human leaders attempting to contain the Shade Walkers by separating their worlds, believing the division would starve the entities of the conflict that sustained them. But the ritual went wrong, the division became permanent, and in their separation, both races rewrote history to blame the other. As the images faded, silence gripped the chamber. Even Elder Krill seemed shaken, his earlier hostility replaced by confusion and doubt. If this is true, Elder Verilith whispered, everything we have believed is incomplete, Master Whisper finished gently. Not false, but shaped by separation and fear. Farrell spoke for the first time, his voice respectful but firm. The Shade Walkers have grown stronger, not weaker in our division. They feed on the very boundaries we created to contain them, and now they threaten both our worlds. As if summoned by his words, a distant alarm sounded from the city below. A guardian burst into the chamber, face pale with urgency. Shade Walkers, she cried, a massive force approaching from the east. The council rose as one, personal concerns forgotten in the face of immediate threat. How many? Demanded Elder Krill. Hundreds, the Guardian reported. More than we've ever seen gathered. They move as one force with purpose. Niam and Farrell exchanged glances, understanding passing between them. They sense what we're attempting, Farrell said. They know we've discovered the truth. And they will do anything to prevent reunification, Niam added. Elder Verilith turned to Master Whisper. Mobilize the Guardian Order, all forces to the eastern wall. She hesitated, then looked at Farrell. Will you fight alongside us, human, against our common enemy? It would be my honor, Farrell replied, bowing deeply. As the council dispersed to coordinate the city's defense, Niam pulled Farrell aside. This is not your battle, she said softly. You could return to your cottage to safety. Farrell cupped her face gently, a gesture that would have been unimaginable weeks before. My place is with you, he said simply. And perhaps this is why the lake healed us both, for this moment, this chance to heal the divide between our worlds. Master Whisper approached, carrying what appeared to be a crystal pendant similar to Niam's lost marking. The council has authorized this, he said, holding it out to Farrell. A temporary marking that will allow you to channel the heart's energy to fight as one of us. Farrell accepted the pendant with reverence, placing it around his neck. Immediately, a soft glow emanated from it, connecting him to the heart's power. I don't know what to say, he murmured. Say nothing, Master Whisper replied with the hint of a smile. But fight well, human. Show my student that her faith in you is justified. The eastern wall of Crystales was a marvel of crystal architecture, a seamless barrier that rose from the earth like a natural formation, imbued with protective energies. Now, it was the last line of defense against the approaching horde. Guardians lined its length, while crystal archers positioned themselves in towers that spiraled upward into the sky. Niam and Farrell stood at the center of the wall, alongside Master Whisper and the most elite of the Guardian Order. From this vantage, they could see the Shade Walkers approaching, a writhing mass of shadow that seemed to devour the very light from the air around it. They've never organized like this before, Niam observed, her crystal blade humming with energy in her grip. Always scattered attacks, small groups. Because they've never been threatened like this before, Farrell replied. His borrowed blade, infused with crystal energy by Master Whisper himself, glowed with the same intensity as Niam's. We're striking at their very existence. Master Whisper surveyed the approaching enemy, his ancient eyes narrowed in concentration. The heart responds to them differently, he noted. Can you feel it? Not just resistance, but recognition. Niam focused her senses on the distant pulse of the heart at the city's center. Master Whisper was right. There was something familiar in the heart's reaction to the Shade Walkers, as if it recognized a lost part of itself. The memory crystal showed the walkers forming during the conflict, she said slowly. What if they're not just feeding on our discord? What if they're made from it? Energy cannot be created or destroyed, Farrell murmured, recalling an old human teaching. Only transformed. A flash of insight struck Niam. The heart's energy, it was meant to flow between our peoples, to unite us, when that flow was disrupted by fear and hatred. It manifested as the Shade Walkers, Master Whisper finished, understanding dawning on his weathered face. Negative energy given form and purpose. Then fighting them only makes them stronger, Farrell realized. It feeds the very cycle that created them. The first wave of Shade Walkers reached the base of the wall, their shadowy forms coalescing into more solid shapes as they began to climb. Crystal arrows rained down upon them, dispersing some into mist only for others to absorb the dissipated energy and grow stronger. If we cannot fight them, Master Whisper said, what alternative remains? Niam looked at the crystal pendant around Farrell's neck, at her own marking, at the heart's energy flowing through them both, human and Crystales, united in purpose. We heal the rift, she said with sudden certainty. Not just symbolically, but literally, we restore the flow that was broken. How? Farrell asked, even as he cut down a Shade Walker that had reached the top of the wall. The heart, Niam said, turning to Master Whisper. It recognized the walkers. It knows what they truly are, if Farrell and I can channel its energy together as our peoples once did. Master Whisper's eyes widened. It could work, but it would require direct access to the heart itself, not just its fragment, and the amount of energy needed. Could kill us, Farrell finished, understanding the unspoken risk. He turned to Niam, determination in his amber eyes. I'm willing to try. The decision made, Master Whisper organized a fighting retreat to the central tower, where the crystal heart resided in its full form. Guardians formed a protective ring around Niam and Farrell as they fought their way back through streets now crawling with shade walkers that had breached the outer defenses. The heart chamber was the most sacred space in Crystallis, a vast crystalline dome at the top of the central tower, where the full crystal heart floated suspended in an energy field of its own creation. Few beyond the council and highest-ranking guardians ever entered this chamber, yet now it became a last bastion as the Shade Walkers pursued them relentlessly. They know what we intend, Master Whisper observed grimly as they sealed the chamber doors. They will throw everything against us to prevent it. The heart itself seemed to pulse with anticipation, its light growing brighter as Niam and Farrell approached. Standing before it, they could feel its energy reaching out to them both, recognizing something in their union that resonated with its original purpose. "What do we do?" Farrell asked, his voice hushed with awe. "We open ourselves to it," Niam replied, taking his hand. "Completely, no barriers, no fear, no doubt." Around them, the last defenders of Crystallis fought desperately as Shade Walkers began to phase through the sealed doors, their forms becoming more substantial, more powerful as they drew closer to the heart. Niam and Farrell stood with hands clasped before the heart, their pendants glowing in unison. "Together," Niam whispered, and they reached out with their free hands to touch the surface of the crystal heart. Light exploded outward, blinding in its intensity. Niam felt Farrell's consciousness merge with hers, felt the boundaries between them dissolve as the heart's energy flowed through them both. Memories cascaded around them, not just from the memory crystal, but from the heart itself. The complete history of their peoples, the truth of their connection, the purpose of their separation, and the key to their reunification. The Shade Walkers had been right to fear this moment, for as human and Crystallis united in perfect harmony before the heart, its energy began to flow as it was always meant to, not contained within one realm, but circulating between worlds in endless renewal. The Shade Walkers seemed to freeze, their shadowy forms trembling. Then, one by one, they began to change. The darkness that comprised them started to fracture, revealing threads of crystal light within, the original energy of the heart, trapped and distorted for centuries, now freed to return to its source. Throughout Crystallis, throughout the human territories beyond the Whisperwood, throughout the very boundaries between worlds, the transformation spread. Shade Walkers dissolved not into death but into reclamation, their energy returning to the heart, strengthening it, making it whole for the first time since the sundering. In the heart chamber, Niam and Farrell stood at the center of the maelstrom, their bodies luminous with channeled power. The pain was excruciating as more energy than any single being was meant to contain flowed through them, but they held fast to each other, to their shared purpose, to the love that had grown between them against all odds. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the storm of light subsided. The Shade Walkers were gone, leaving behind an altered world. Where the boundaries had once stood firm between human and Crystallis territories, new growths had formed, crystal formations infused with the lush life of the human lands, bridges between worlds both literal and symbolic. Niam and Farrell collapsed to the chamber floor, still hand in hand, exhausted beyond measure but alive. Around them, the defenders of Crystallis stood in stunned silence, witnessing a miracle none had thought possible. Master Whisper was the first to approach, kneeling beside his former student with tears tracking down his azure face. "You have done what our ancestors could not," he said softly. "You have healed the great sundering." In the days that followed, messengers traveled between the human settlements and Crystallis for the first time in centuries. The Council, forever changed by what they had witnessed, established new laws permitting humans to enter the Crystal City. Human leaders, equally transformed by the shared experience of the Walkers' dissolution, welcomed Crystallis' ambassadors into their midst. It would take time for old hatreds to fully dissolve, for trust to truly flourish. But the foundation had been laid. the path illuminated by the sacrifice and courage of a guardian who had been willing to question everything she believed, and a human who had seen beyond ancient boundaries to the truth that connected them all. Niam and Farrell, once recovered from their ordeal, stood upon the balcony of the crystal spire, overlooking a city transformed. Where once there had been only the harsh gleam of crystal, now patches of green had begun to appear, human plants taking root in Crystalli's soil, a harmonious blending of worlds. "What will you do now?" Master Whisper asked, joining them at the railing. "Now that your quest is complete." Niam looked at Farrell, at the human who had saved her life in more ways than one. "Our quest is just beginning," she said softly. "There is so much to rebuild, so much to rediscover between our peoples." "The lake knew," Farrell said, his fingers intertwining with Niam's. "When it healed us both, bound us to each other, it knew what we would become." Master Whisper nodded, wisdom in his ancient eyes. "The boundaries between worlds are never as fixed as we believe them to be. Water flows, crystal grows, hearts change." He placed his hands upon their shoulders. "The Council has created a new position, ambassadors of unity. They would have you both serve to guide our peoples as we learn to live together once more." Niam felt a surge of emotion, pride, purpose, love. She looked at Farrell and saw in his amber eyes the same commitment, the same certainty. "We accept," she said, speaking for them both. As twilight descended upon Crystallis, painting the spires in hues of gold and purple, Niam and Farrell stood united at the threshold of a new era. Their journey had begun in blood and battlefield, in ancient hatreds and misunderstandings. But it would continue in harmony and hope, in the patient work of healing divisions far older than themselves. "Together," Farrell whispered, echoing the promise they had made before the heart. "Always," Niam replied, her emerald skin luminous in the fading light, her heart full with the certainty that some boundaries were meant to be crossed, some differences meant to be bridged, and some loves powerful enough to transform worlds. In the distance, at the edge of what had once been the Whisperwood, crystal formations caught the last rays of sunlight. And between the trees, flowing clear and pristine, a new tributary of the healing lake had formed, water and crystal in perfect balance, just as human and Crystallis would be again.